So it's July 1st, 2018. We're in Robbinsville, North Carolina, and we're talking with Doug Wexler. So first, were you drafted or did you enlist? Drafted, okay. When was that?
1943.
1943. So a couple years into the U.S. engagement in the war. Was it early 43 or?
May 19th.
May 19th.
1943.
So about a year and a half into.
Until February 3rd, 1946.
Okay. And where were you living at that time?
New Jersey.
New Jersey. Where in New Jersey?
Carteret.
Carteret.
Small town.
Okay. Small town.
Small industrial town.
Uh-huh. Why did you pick the branch of service branch you joined?
Well, I really didn't pick it. I got drafted in the Army.
Yeah.
That's not what I wanted.
Okay.
I had hope in the spring of that year. I decided I wanted to fly.
Okay.
Because there was a General Motors plant nearby that was making the Navy, I think it's called a Corsair, but I'm not sure, fighter plane.
Okay.
And they used to test the plane over, and I said, okay, that's what I want to do.
You saw it, like, I want to do that.
I want to do that. So I applied for the, I forget what it's called, Navy V7 or whatever, Air Force training. And I took their test, passed all their tests, got to the physical, and the last doctor I saw looked at me and said, "You're fine, except you're a quarter inch too short."
Oh no, quarter of an inch.
Quarter of an inch too short. He said, "We can't take you because you won't be able to see out of the cockpit." I said, "Okay." He said, "I'll tell you what, join the Navy and we'll grow you a quarter of an inch and then you can reapply." So I had two brothers who were already in service. They were both officers. And I talked to them and they said, "Forget it. Go through the draft." And which I did.
Well, so did they give you any, why would they suggest that you go through the draft instead of?
They were both Army.
Okay.
And I thought that would be better for me.
Okay.
Whatever.
Okay.
So I got drafted.
Uh-huh.
And I was, along with there were 14 other of my high school classmates drafted the same day. And we all ended up in Missouri with this one outfit.
Okay. Was that common that they would keep people together that were from the same hometown?
Groups from cities went together.
Yes, okay.
The fact that we all went into one outfit together was a little bit unusual. But there's a story, you may have heard of it, the five Sullivan brothers that enlisted in the Navy together, and they were on the same ship that was sunk, and the family lost 5 sons at one time. And after that, they decided not to send more than 2 in the same family, the same outfit.
Okay.
And the movie Saving Private Ryan,
yes,
they wanted to find him to get him out of combat because a brother of his or something like that had already been killed.
Yeah.
So anyway, I ended up in Missouri with this one outfit called Signal. It was a Signal Operations Battalion.
Okay.
And I'm probably the only one out of 16 million soldiers, sailors, Marines, and all that had one address in all the time I was in the Army.
Okay.
From the time I was inducted to the time I was discharged. Headquarters, 303rd Signal Operations Battalion. Never changed. Never changed. I went with them, trained in the States, went overseas with them, came back with them, and got discharged from the same outfit. Can't say the same of the other 7 of the other 14 in my outfit. 7 of us came home together, roughly together. We were discharged at different times. But 7 of them we lost along the way. Some for good reasons, some for bad reasons.
Okay.
We had one fellow who I'd known as a kid, grew up with him. He was really a troublemaker. He was a good kid, but he was a troublemaker. And when we joined our outfit, after he was there a couple of months, I was in battalion headquarters. I was like the administrative guy. And we had a file called the Banana Boat Special. It was a file. And any of the guys in the outfit that screwed up and the company commanders wanted to get rid of, they sent their name over to us. We put their name in the Banana Boat Special, which meant the first time we had a chance to transfer them somewhere else, away they went.
Did they go to the same? Was there like a general place that you sent everybody who was?
No,
Okay.
some
It
went
just
to the
scattered
infantry,
okay.
artillery, wherever. And Joe went somewhere. We don't know. I don't know. Lost track of it. So that's how I got into the Signal Corps, and as I stayed there for my entire career in the Army.
Was there boot camp or training?
We had basic training, but it was in one outfit.
Okay.
We didn't go to a boot camp.
Okay.
We trained in Missouri during the summer of '43.
Okay. Was it hot? Do you remember?
Awful.
Yeah.
Hot, humid, terrible.
Were you starting to anticipate or being anxious about going overseas, or were you ready, or
Never thought about it.
You never thought about it. You're just there to do what you were told to do, and.
But a story that I told some people at Hammond Glen the other night. We used to go out on hikes 4 or 5 times a week. Summertime in Missouri, dusty roads. Sometimes we'd walk in creeks just to cool off. And because my name starts with a W, at the beginning of the hikes, I was always at the end. And there were like 50 or 60 guys in this line. And we had 2 sergeants that were tall, and they walked pretty fast. And so being at the end of the line, it was like an accordion. We were always falling back, had to catch up, falling back. So after about a week, I finally had enough nerve to go up to one of the sergeants, and I said, "Sarge, can I ask you a favor?" He said, "Sure, what is it?" He said, "Can I come all the way up to the front of the line, right behind you 3 guys?" I said, "I'm having trouble at the back here, trying to keep up." He said, "Sure, come on, you can be right behind us." So I got into 3rd in line. And they kept a pretty good pace, and you can ask her. I can't walk slow. To this day, I can't walk slow. I have a keep a pretty fast pace going. But that's one of my favorite Army stories.
That's good. I bet that was much better than being at the back and constantly feeling like you've got to catch up. Stay quick, but stay fast. Stay one pace.
An interesting story to tell you. This was during the World Series of 1943. I was on shower duty, which meant that I had to keep the furnaces going with coal to keep the water hot, so when the guys came back from the hike, they had hot water. Well, I was a St. Louis Cardinal fan, and the Cardinals were in the World Series that year. And no, that was the Browns, I guess. But whatever it was, I got really involved. We had a radio and listening to the game, and I forgot all about the ovens. And I said, I better go shovel some more coal in. So I shoveled a lot of coal in, and then I went back to the radio and completely forgot about the showers. The guys came back and started to take their showers, and all that came out was hot steam. I mean, I had superheated everything, and fortunately nobody got hurt or burned. But that was my experience being a shower attendant. This was at Camp Carter, Missouri, too.
Were there ramifications for that mistake, or was it?
No.
Yeah, okay.
They let me off the hook.
Okay. Did you try and play it off like it was a prank?
No, I was just happy they kind of forgot about it.
Where exactly did you go when you went overseas?
We were the first convoy from the United States that went directly to France.
Okay.
We spent one night in Weymouth Harbor, and then we crossed the Channel. And we landed in France on my birthday. Okay. September 23rd, 1944.
Okay.
Midnight after midnight in a pouring rain, sitting on. They didn't have ships to take us to shore. They had rafts made out of empty oil drums with steel plates welded across the top, and the water was about that far below the plates, and we got soaked.
Okay.
Got soaked. They put us on 2.5-ton trucks to take us to to the bivouac area near Monaburg in France, and I'll never forget there was a colored outfit. I forgot what it was called, a Red Ball Express, and they ran transportation. So we got on these 2.5-ton trucks, and it was probably maybe a 30-minute drive, 40-minute drive. Well, we left about 1:30 in the morning, and we didn't get to it about 5 o'clock. because I remember we went through the same town. They got lost, the town of Valognes in Normandy, about 5 times before they found this field that they were supposed to take us to. So that was my introduction to France.
What was the morale like at that point when you landed?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Good. We accepted it. That's why we were there.
How long did it take you to get over from the U.S.? And where did you go directly? Did you go to
We
the
went from New York,
UK?
one night in Weymouth Harbor, and then in Cherbourg. I think it took us about 10 or 12 days in a big convoy. We were in a large convoy.
And what did you do to pass the time going over?
Well, because the colonel of our outfit was the senior army officer on board. It was a British ship called a Scythia. And they brought something like 2,500 German prisoners back to the United States from Africa. And they took like 6,000 Americans over to Europe. It was pretty crowded.
Yeah, I would imagine.
And we slept on hammocks down in the ship's hold, and we ate there too.
Okay.
So after about 4 or 5 days, the odor got to be pretty bad. But because our colonel was the senior officer, he assigned groups to different parts of the ship. So about 15 or 20 of us went up to the ship's orderly room, which was on the top deck. We had fresh air. We never went back down again.
Okay.
And we survived on bread, Milky Ways, and soda for the last 8 or 9 days of the trip. We never went down to eat. You couldn't go down. It was terrible down there. Slept on the floor or slept on desks. You got the cool air coming in, and it was more than cool because we had a couple of storms going over. So I think it took us 10 or 12 days to Cherbourg.
And so I guess it was starting to be pretty nice weather. I guess if you were September and October, you were in your field near Normandy.
We were there in Normandy in this muddy bivouac area until just after Thanksgiving. And then we moved up to Belgium in late December. We were setting up what was called the 15th Army headquarters. They were the army that was going to push to Berlin. And then the bulge broke out about the 16th of December, and we were right in the middle of where it started. So we were there we were setting up a Christmas party. We were in a little town called Huye. It was about 800 people. And we were setting up a Christmas party for the kids in town. And on Christmas Eve, the 24th, night before then, our colonel was up at some Air Force base or whatever it was. And a couple of pilots came back from a mission. And the colonel asked them where they last spotted the German tanks. And one of the lieutenants said, "Colonel, where's your outfit located?" And they pointed to the little town called Huye. And one of the lieutenants said, "Colonel, if I were you, I would get my ass back there as quick as possible and get them out of there, because the tanks were only about 10 miles away." So he came back that night. We packed up, and most of us left for France. Some went up to Antwerp to run some signal communications up there. So we got out, and the German advanced during the bulge. There was a little river called the Lesse, right by Huye. And Jane's been in Huye. It's a lovely little town. I love the place. And there was a very windy road goes up the east, and the Germans came down that road, and they were decimated. And that was the furthest advance that they made during the Battle of the Bulge, up to the bridge. Some British paratroops came in, they blew the bridge. When they blew the bridge, part of the bridge, and I didn't know this until much later after the war, a piece of the bridge went through a house in this little town, and there was a lady near a window, and it killed her.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know that until I read a book about that time period. But anyway, so we went down to France, and we were there a month. We came back to the same town late January after the bulge was over. Stayed there until April, I lived with a Belgian family, which we still see, right to. And then we went to Germany until early June, and then early July, and then we were slated. Our outfit was slated to go from Marseille to Okinawa to finish off the war in the Far East. And another interesting story. We were sitting on a dock in Marseille. I was one of 5 guys picked to go on a different ship with our equipment. And then decided to only send 1 officer. And this was in July of 45. What happened, that ship left before we did. That officer had no written orders. And when he got to Okinawa or the Far East, they wouldn't let him off the ship because there was nothing indicating what he was supposed to do. He never got back to the States until like January or February of 1946. But anyway, so we left August, I think it was August the 6th, and 45 to head to the Panama Canal and over to Okinawa.
From France. So from France you went through the Panama Canal.
Marseille through Gibraltar to the Panama.
Yes.
But we never got to the Panama Canal. We were 2 days short of the Panama Canal when the war ended in the Far East. And the captain of the ship came on and he said, and now, attention all troops, watch the shadow. I always remember, when we were on the wharf in Marseille, we had a master sergeant that had he had a lot of service, and he technically could have been out, but he was a master sergeant, motor corps, or whatever he called it, so they wouldn't let him out. So he's up front of this line on this, getting ready on the ship. So I yelled up to him, Don Fletcher was his name. I said, okay, Sergeant Fletcher, there go all your points. Welcome to the ride to Asia. So he turns around to me and he says, you gotta have faith. Okay. So we get on his ship and we're 2 days short of the Panama Canal. The captain makes us announce about, watch the shadows of the ship change as we turn toward New York. And he and I are standing together. And he says to me, you remember what I told you? I said, yeah. He said, come on with me. So we go down into the hold of the ship where our bunks were. He goes down into his duffel bag and he pulls out a full bottle of Armagnac, opens it up, and it was warm enough. And I'm not a drinker. The two of us finished a half a bottle. But we were the first boat back that had been turned around. That was going to the Pacific that came back to the States. And we arrived on August 18th. Because my wife's birthday was August 22nd, August 18th. And I didn't have enough points to be discharged. Most of us didn't. So we got a 7-week furlough. And then they took us down to Fort Bragg in North Carolina. Had nothing to do. I went to
August in Fort Bragg. I bet that was wonderful.
We didn't go to Fort Bragg. I'm sorry. We went to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And I was there a couple weeks, and my captain that I'd known I worked for him for a long time, was in the Army. He said, I got an opportunity for you. He said, how would you like to go to Army Athletics Director School? I said, because we weren't doing anything. I said, fine. And so he and a fellow from Jim Weaver from Wilmington, Delaware, they sent us to VMI by train. We spent a month there, swimming, running, doing all kinds of crazy things. And Jack Weaver and I were the first weekend we were going to go home because we were pretty close to. He was from Delaware, I was from New Jersey. They worked us over so hard the first week to test us out. When we got to the curbstone in Lexington, Virginia, we had to pick our leg up to move it. I was so stiff I could hardly move. So we didn't go. But after 4 weeks, I didn't get the highest rating, but I got the next highest rating of performance improvement. And I was there until and after that, the outfit had moved to Fort Bragg. Then we went out of Fort Bragg for a while. I taught the guys. I didn't teach them. I'd run volleyball games and other things because I was an Army athletic director now. I gave exercises and stuff like that until I got discharged.
Mm-hmm.
And I was home 10 days when I went off to school in Virginia.
To UVA? That's when you went to
UVA,
yeah. Okay. How many points did you have to have, and was it just times of service, or was it other things?
Times of service, where you served.
Okay. And you came back to New York Harbor?
New York Harbor.
Okay.
And I called my folks they sent us to Camp Kilmer from the ship. And I called my parents, and I talked to my mother, and she said, I just talked to your Uncle Joe, who lives in New York, and he had read in the paper where the ships that were arriving, and my mother said, oh, that's not possible. We just got a letter the other day saying it'll be 6 weeks before we heard from you again. So I said, no, I'm at Camp Kilmer. And we didn't go home. They sent us, from Kilmer we took our 7-week furloughs.
So you got to go home for 7 weeks.
Yeah.
How long were you back at Camp Kilmore, and then before your 7 week?
Probably like from October. I went back in service in the end of October, and then we went to Fort Bragg.
Okay.
And Camp Campbell, then Fort Bragg, and then finally over with.
How soon did you see your parents when you got back?
As soon as I got off the ship, I went home.
Okay.
I was only 10 miles away.
Okay.
Less than 10 miles away.
I bet that felt pretty incredible.
Oh, yeah. But you look at it, I look back at it, and that's what it was. It was nothing exciting. It was interesting. Mm-hmm. We were home. It was over with. It was fine.
Mm-hmm.